It's so cute.
They're like dogs.
Yeah, like they get so happy.
The more videos
So
I
cute.
see of the cows that live on this property, like I have to go vegetarian. I love cows.
Which is really ironic because this is a beef
I was
farm.
gonna say, yeah.
You're offending them.
Welcome back to Say It Sister with Laura and Carly. Today we are somewhere new.
Yeah, we are so excited to be with Jenna.
In her tiny house.
Hey.
She's one of our favorite friends that we have. We actually met in university. It was our first year. And you reached out to me, slid in the DMs, and you were like, hey, I need a place to live. I saw you just bought a place. Like, can we hang out? Can we like meet up? So I think we met up in what was that place called? The dining room.
Yeah,
And that was, we met Emily and you. And that was just the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's actually kind of crazy that we met like in anticipation to become roommates before we had become friends.
Yeah.
And it just worked out like so amazingly.
Yeah.
That is true. We didn't really know each other at all. Maybe mutual friends, but...
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we really didn't know anything about each other at all. So that was really cool. We have so many memories from living together, you know, good and bad. You were there the night that we talked about on the podcast a few weeks ago with the almost break-in situation, which was fun. You were actually the one that, the one I didn't name, that texted me being like, do you guys hear that out my window? So that was scary.
What are some of your favorite memories of living in Waterloo?
There's so many.
Everything I feel like in that living room
I know.
was some of my favorite memories, like getting ready to go out for a night or...
It was the little moments, I think. Like, we lived within walking distance of Dairy Queen.
Oh, yes.
And it would be, like, the rainiest or snowiest night at, like, 10 p.m., and we would just be like, yeah. we want to go to Dairy Queen right now.
Yeah. The coldest winter nights are the days we need a DQ.
Always.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it would always just be one person DM the whole group, like, DQ, and everyone, always.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely. Yeah, I think getting ready to go out was always fun. I'd bring my full-length mirror upstairs to the living room, and Emily would be sitting there with her, like, makeup mirror.
Yes.
Just the tiny little one, trying to do her makeup. And we would just put on music, and I feel like that, honestly, was almost like the most fun part of a night out, was just getting ready together.
I feel like during quarantine I'll be at home and I'll like want those memories.
It's
I'll want those moments.
Those little things for sure.
Yeah.
One of the first things that we did together as roommates, we went to that pumpkin farm or like pumpkin patch.
Yes.
And I feel like it was at the very beginning when we still didn't really know each other well, but we decided to all go to the pumpkin patch together, and it was so cute. And I feel like that's when we really start to be like, you know, we like each other.
Yeah, we have a lot in common.
Yeah, and we started to just like plan things together and like actually want to hang out, and I don't know, that was cute.
Yeah, that was amazing. So one of the cool things that Jenna has done since graduating is build herself a tiny house.
With her own hands.
A hammer and nail, and look
But
what
you
we have.
invested in a tiny house.
Yeah.
Yes. So you'll have to check out the YouTube video that we also have created on this podcast, which kind of shows you some visuals of where we're sitting right now in her tiny house. But do you want to kind of explain the starting process? What made you think I want to live alternatively?
Well, it's like tiny houses have always been something I thought was so cool. And I mean, my lifestyle has always been very minimalist, like not intentionally, just I don't like having a lot of stuff or clutter. And I just like the idea of there's a place for everything.
Yeah.
So I always loved the idea of it, but never really thought seriously about it. And then I guess it was honestly like maybe a year ago now when COVID had really hit, and I was living with my sister and brother-in-law on their farm just temporarily, like while I was quarantining, working from home. And I started to think more seriously about like, okay, like what's my next step? And my parents were moving, so, you know, my options were I move with them, which I didn't really want to do because they're far away enough where it would have been difficult to come back and see people or work or whatever. So they were moving, and my other option was finding a place to rent, which also just, you know, you're just throwing money away. It's difficult to justify that, I think. So then I just started thinking, you know, like, my sister and brother-in-law have all this property here on the farm, and I just was like, is this an option? Like, could I actually do something like this? Have a tiny house and put it on the property? So I guess that was like, yeah, April, May of last year. And just started looking into my options here in Ontario. Started just playing around with designs. I'm not a designer at all, but I think I had a clear picture in my head of what I wanted it to look like if I did do it. So I just started designing it, really, and then eventually I so I have a lot of family out west in BC who are builders, and they had never built tiny houses before, but they knew someone out there who had, and they were just really excited about the opportunity. They were ready to get going right away, and I showed them my designs, and I was like, hey, like, can you build this for me? And they were like, yeah, absolutely, like, let's do it. So it just all sort of fell into place, which was really exciting. So I signed the contract in June. I went out there to help with just actually like physically pick some things out in July, and everything just started moving. It was done in September, and then it came mid-October.
Wow.
So
it was pretty quick from deciding you wanted to do it to like having it ready.
Yeah.
And I think once I realized that it was actually feasible, like I, you know, talked to the bank and was like, can I financially do this? So once I had those initial conversations of figuring out if I actually could do it, then I had made up my mind, and I was like, okay, like, let's do it so that, you know, it's here for winter and I can settle in. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I remember we had a Zoom call with our friends, and you kind of brought up the idea, like, yeah, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do. My parents are moving. Like, I'm thinking of building a tiny house. And we're all like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But you are the type of person that, like, you say, yeah, I think I'm going to do this.
And then
it's not like, oh, yeah, everyone wants to do that.
Yeah.
Like, you did it.
Yeah. And it's amazing. It's seriously stunning. It's, like, better than pictures.
Yeah.
It's
it really
amazing.
is. And we were just talking about how it doesn't feel tiny at all. Like, it feels like you're home. It feels like home to us even when we visit.
Yeah. It's so cozy. She has such a good, like, sense of style. And the colors you've used are just so warm and welcoming. It's amazing.
And you said everything has its place, but also, like, every single item in here you can tell is, like, very thoughtfully chosen.
Yeah.
And where it's placed, and your coloring, and all of it. Like, there's nothing in here that you don't love. You can tell.
Yeah, exactly. And I was really excited about that too, because I kept some things, but was able to be like, okay, this doesn't have a purpose. I'm going to donate it. And then, like, start completely fresh and just look at what places needed something, and like, exactly like you said, just very intentionally pick something out for a specific spot. And I loved that.
Yeah. It has super tall ceilings, which is amazing, with like wood on the ceiling, and it looks amazing. And then you have a huge wardrobe, which is incredible. It's seriously like an IKEA wardrobe that we have at home, which is amazing. It's so spacious considering it's a, you know, tiny home. Huge bathroom. It's pretty killer.
Yeah. Do you think that, so you've lived almost a year in here now, and you're coming up on, like, your first summer.
Yes.
So that'll be nice because you can actually move outside.
I'm so excited because, so I moved in October, and I maybe had like a week left of
good weather.
Yeah, good weather. And it was snowing when I was trying to dig a pit outside, and so I really didn't have time to enjoy the, like, summer or fall or anything out here.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited. I'm hopefully gonna do a little patio with a hammock, some furniture. So I'm really, really excited to be here in the summer.
Yeah, we're excited to come.
Yeah. So while you were building, is there anything you regret or like that you didn't put in that you wish you had? Or is there any advice you'd give to people on things you absolutely need in a tiny home?
I feel like design-wise, because I designed it myself and picked out every little thing, design-wise, I'm like, I honestly wouldn't change a thing.
That's great.
But the one thing I think I wish that I invested in was heated flooring. Because when you do heated flooring, I think it won't, like, your pipes won't freeze, basically.
Okay.
Because the floor is the thing that gets the coldest, because underneath it's just open, there's no foundation. So if the pipes in there get cold enough, then they will freeze. So, and the way, like, the technology is really cool. Like, I was talking to someone who's doing a tiny house with heated floors, and they actually put, I don't know how, but the hot water heater is in the floor or underneath somehow.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so I think that would be the thing that I would invest in. I just honestly didn't really know that it was an option, or I assumed that it was just completely out of my budget.
It seems like a kind of bougie thing, but I guess it's very practical when you're
especially for Canadian winters.
Yeah.
Like at West, obviously, it'd be a bit different because they don't get as cold of winters, so...
True.
Yeah.
And that's where your builder was from.
Yeah.
How has it been working from home in this smaller space? Have you had issues with feeling like you're kind of trapped in this little area when other people are in their bigger homes during all this?
Surprisingly, no. I feel like I feel like everything I'm just saying is so good and amazing, but I'm not even kidding you. Like, it is. I do have a tiny, like, a little folding desk that just, like, folds up from the wall, which is great, but yeah, I mean, I've been working from home for over a year now, and I thought it was going to be challenging, and obviously it took a bit to get used to and settle into, but I think the thing is, well, one, I have a giant window right in front of my desk, so I don't feel like I'm...
True, you feel like you're on this, like, massive property, which is
Exactly,
awesome.
Yeah, so I think that helps a lot. Because it's so open, I feel like when I'm sitting at my desk, it's like, oh, I'm just in a really big office. Or whereas I'm sitting on my couch, oh, I'm just in a really big living room, you know? So I feel like it's, because it's so open, it doesn't feel like I'm stuck or anything like that.
That's so great to hear. I'm so glad you're, like, thriving and living your best life in this home, because it truly is gorgeous. And the windows are spectacular. Like, every single window you look at is just, like, lush, huge, like, gardens and grass and trees and farmland.
Yeah.
It's
beautiful.
just, like, how do you not feel inspired? And you
It
just feel
helps.
like you own the world in here.
Yeah, like, obviously, the property and the location makes a huge difference. Because... Exactly. Like, I'm looking outside, that's what I look at all day, and it's just, like, beautiful.
Yeah.
So.
Do you see a future with a lot more people getting into tiny living, or do you think it's kind of at its peak? Like, I know I would say most people know someone that has a tiny house or, like, wants one. Everyone wants one.
Yes.
Everyone looks at it as, like, an ideal. Do you think that it's gonna continue growing in the future? And like you said, like, there's so many options for making it more affordable to own your first house.
Yeah, I think it's going to grow, like, a crazy amount. I think more and more people are just realizing that it actually makes sense. And it's not just for people who want to live off-grid or people who, it's anyone can do it, and it makes sense for young people. It makes sense, as a first home buyer. But
totally.
I think, like, the demand is going to grow, which hopefully that means that the legal side and the regulations are going to follow that, because that's, like, a huge barrier still. So municipalities need to
get on board.
They need to catch up, like, to be honest.
No, I agree. Even vacant land, like, we have people that'll buy vacant land and want to do something like what you're doing, where you're plopping a tiny house on that land. and they're like, oh no, unless you're building a legit home with a foundation and well and septic and all that stuff,
Yeah.
it's not allowed. But why not?
Yeah, lots of municipalities have like minimum sizes for the house you can build. And I think that's really outdated because it's probably a rule that they made 50 years ago when
they didn't want like trailer trash.
Yeah, people building their mansions didn't want to live beside someone who like bought a plot of land and was gonna like live in a shed. And a plot of land. It is outdated that they haven't gotten up with the times. And even more builders, like, understanding how to build tiny homes and insurance for tiny homes, like, all of those things are behind, for sure.
And I think the media, too, like HGTV and Netflix having shows about it, just makes people more aware, like, oh, wait, that's an option. Like, even if I wanted to buy a cottage, maybe this could be my alternative home, like my second home.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Maybe it is like on the media you see the extremes where everybody that's living in a tiny house like is totally off grid and like they shower once a month because that's how much water they can, or like they always have cold showers. Or like I actually saw on Airbnb this week if you want to rent a cottage in Muskoka this summer, like you're too late basically. Everything's booked up. And there was this one that was literally a dock, and someone had built like a cabin on a dock.
Like a shed. It wasn't a cabin. It was a full-on shed.
There's just a bed in it. Like there's just a bed and like maybe a wooden chair. And it was like, you can either rent it and like we'll bring it to your cottage and you can like connect it to your dock at your cottage, or like you can just float. We'll pull you out on our boat to like the lake of your choice and you can float for the night.
That gives me so much anxiety thinking about that.
Like that's such an extreme.
Yeah. Also, like it was booked. Like people were booking.
$250
a raft.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Crazy.
So there's money in it, Jenna. If they can get $200 a night, like this could be thousands.
Yeah, seriously.
Wow.
I'm so scared.
Yeah.
Just out on the lake all night. Like
you'd probably get like seasick.
Yeah.
Lake sick. Oh boy.
Do you think you could live even smaller? Like in an even smaller house? Or is this like the perfect fit?
I think I wouldn't go smaller than this, to be honest. It's the perfect amount of space. Like I wouldn't want any more, but I also wouldn't want any less. Yeah, it's just perfect.
Do you think you'll have, like, I guess the big question is, do you see this as being long term, or do you see yourself at some point buying a like standard home?
I do see it as temporary, I think, because I don't think I could live in here with another person.
Right.
So, but it made complete sense, even knowing it could be temporary, just while I am on my own and while I'm not 100% settled anywhere. So I think however long I'm in here, you know, once I settle down, I guess, in terms of family, then I would probably do something more standard. But for right now, it's great. But yeah, I just don't think I could share the space with another person.
Yeah, especially because you're settled in and you designed it for you.
Exactly.
You didn't design it for another body, another whole set of clothing and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But how cool would it be to have this on like a future property of yours?
Oh yeah. Like even if I'm not living in it, I want to have it either rent out, you know, put it on Airbnb, anything. So cool. I plan to have it for a long time, but just whether it's, you know, extra income or for just anyone to stay, like a cottage or anything like that.
Yeah, with Airbnb and stuff, this is like totally a dream Airbnb where people would spend a lot of money just to have this cool experience. And Laura has considered, you know, the tiny living and the van life type options. So it's cool that you're able to like be here and kind of see how she's living now.
Yeah, like a question that I would have is you could watch hours and hours and hours of content on living small, tiny living, alternative living. And I feel like I've watched so much content that I kind of know what to expect. And you might have felt that too. Were there any things that surprised you or were like, oh, I didn't expect this?
I know everyone says it's like the little things that you don't think about, but even just like garbage bins, recycling bins, like where to put waste.
Yeah.
I think that was one thing, and I was like, oh yeah, I have more than enough space. But when, there's not many options, like smaller options for waste bins and stuff. I think generally I was actually pleasantly surprised. Like, I think I was expecting it to actually feel smaller than it did. But I'd say the biggest things were the practical, like, plumbing issues, electrical issues, like those things that you can expect to an extent, but when they're actually happening, it's like, okay, I have to deal with this. One thing I didn't expect, like, you can kind of plan, again, to an extent, but things aren't always going to go to plan.
Yeah.
So when I was figuring out how I wanted to set up all my utilities, like my water, my hydro, whatever, for my water, so I have a composting toilet, so I only had to deal with gray water, which is nice because there's a lot more flexibility with that. You know, I use all biodegradable products so that my gray water isn't going to harm the ground at all if it goes into the ground. So my plan was to dig a 5-foot deep pit, and like I had read online, this is a great solution, it's easy, it's, you know, not permanent enough where you can't leave, and it, you know. So we dug this pit, I got mounds of gravel, I piped this whole thing underground going into the pit, and started
in October.
And when I had a lot of help digging the pit, I will say that. I did not do it myself.
You with the shovel.
The day we were digging it, it was a blizzard.
Oh man. The first blizzard of the year, obviously.
Yeah, it was. Wow. So anyways, we finally got it dug, and I started using it, and then, like, as we were digging, it started to get, like, hit a little bit more clay, which isn't great for drainage, but I was like, oh, it's probably fine, you know, it'll work. It did not work. So within a few weeks of, I think the showers too, like, makes it fill up a lot quicker, but yeah, within a few weeks, the water was almost at the top of the pit, and so I couldn't use it anymore. And thankfully I have a friend who is a plumber, and he has saved my life multiple times this winter, because I had some frozen pipes and just a few other things, and so he was able to help me figure out, like, a temporary solution for that, which was amazing.
Yeah, but it's good to have those friends.
Oh yeah. So now I just have this giant pit in front of my house that's not being used, and what we ended up doing was basically just my water drains right onto the ground behind my house, and it's actually worked really well. Yeah, I haven't run into any problems, so but yeah, that was fun.
Something to think about when you're doing it.
But that doesn't really make sense that you would dig and then it would drain better, because like the deeper you dig, the more clay there's going to be.
Yeah.
The less drainage.
I guess it depends on the terrain.
I was going to say, like, that
makes
makes a big difference, and I sort of assumed that, you know, worked for these people, it'll work for me.
Yeah.
But it really depends on your own situation. And I think that's, like, a major thing I learned in general, because obviously I did so much research, so, like, looking at what other tiny house owners have done, and found, like, lots of cool solutions, but there was always something I was like, well, that wouldn't work for me because of this or whatever.
Right.
So it is, like, everything is so unique to your situation, which is, it does make it a little bit more difficult, but you figure it out, you know, you learn as you go, and I knew that was gonna happen. Like, I knew there were going to be things that I'd have to work through, but yeah.
You mentioned that you kind of follow people and, like, we're looking into it. Do you have, like, a YouTuber or, like, someone that inspires you, or, you know, a website that you, like, go to for advice?
There actually is one. Her name is Jenna, of course.
Oh, that's funny.
And she, like, got into, like, she built a tiny house a long time ago, so she's been doing it for a long time, and she has a blog and videos, and I found hers were really helpful. They were very practical, like, it would be a video of how do we set up our tiny house and hook it up to utilities, or how do we winterize our tiny house, so just, like, super practical things, and you could actually see them doing it, and I found that really helpful. I also went to, well, virtually attended the tiny house conference.
What? That's amazing.
I know.
That's even a thing.
It was so cool, like, because people from all over the world are saying, you know, what they're doing. A lot of them were tiny house companies. I don't know if you guys have watched Tiny House Nation on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
Zach, the guy who's, like, comes up with all those super cool, like, customized things. I love him. And his talk at the conference was actually amazing. Like, he just was really focusing on how can we use tiny houses and these alternative dwelling units as, you know, a way to build community and affordable housing and
that's
to
so cool.
like build up the economy and all these things. And I was like, yes, like that's so important, and I was so happy that that's what he decided to talk about because
and that's so up your alley too, because you're a businesswoman. You graduated with BBA, and you also have, you know, goals to be sustainable and
social entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So, speaking of social entrepreneurship, that's, like, your passion, and that's what you studied, basically. That's what you want to do for a living. Like, tell us about that.
So, yeah, I was a business student at Laurier with you guys, obviously. And I think it was in my second year, and I took Social Entrepreneurship 101. It was like a bird course, I think. I don't know, people told me it was a bird course. I was like, okay, cool, I'll take it, like, get good grades, whatever. And, I mean, obviously it was an introductory course, but it just was kind of a, like, aha moment for me because, you know, business is taught a very specific way, very traditional way. And I feel like it was the first time I had heard that business doesn't have to always be profit driven. So it just, like, got the bug in my ear, and I was like, this is really interesting, and I just wanted to explore it a little bit more. It was just cool to see a business operate in a very different way, and it's like, okay, like, this
something
is
you haven't, like, heard of, or something you weren't taught in like the BBA program.
Exactly. Like, it wasn't about how can we keep our costs the lowest and willing to do anything to minimize our costs, you know? There was just other things that were important to them as business. And the people I was working with, I was like, these are the type of people I want to work with for the rest of my life. So it was just, the values were different, the priorities were different, just everything about it was different in a good way. Okay, I'll go back and explain what social enterprise actually is. So it's business, like, it's you are selling something, you're selling a good or service, you're making revenue, but that revenue is it's being directly invested in some kind of social, environmental, or cultural impact. So an example would be, there's one called Operation Grow, and it's so cool. They operate a vertical farm, and they grow, like, really cool produce and stuff, and they hire women who have come from, like, domestic violence or shelters, so they hire these women to actually run the farm, and so all of the revenue that's generated from selling these products, selling the produce to anyone, like, anyone can buy what they're making, all of that money goes towards programming for these women. So they do, like, yoga, they do cooking classes, they do all these different programming. So it really comes back to where that money is going. So whatever money you're making is in some way supporting some kind of, like, social or environmental cause, I guess you could say, or mission.
Yeah, it's like business, but, like, also making a change and using that money for good.
Exactly. And that, like, that's always the priority. It's not like, okay, we're going to make a bunch of money and then donate a certain percentage to a charity. It's not that. It's like, we are making money so that we can, like, solve this problem or meet this need or whatever that is.
That's so powerful. I love that.
And I think it's interesting you said, like, even in university you didn't, like, fully align with the business mindset. Like, we're so lucky, the friends that we have from business, like, most of our friends did the business program at Laurier.
Yeah.
But I did my BBA a year earlier than you guys. And I found, like, I didn't connect with people that were studying business. They just had this, like, almost money hungry. I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people had this, like, money hungry mindset where it's just like, you make money at all cost, profit. And I felt like, I feel very entrepreneurial. I feel like I am very business minded, and I do see, like, I'm motivated in that way where it's like, I want a business to grow. I want to see the numbers, but from a social standpoint, it was like, I can't even think, like, business isn't even ethical, is it? Like, business can't be ethical if this is the goal all the time, because profit is always going to put somebody else
above others.
Yeah, like, if profit is the number one thing, then, like, someone is losing.
Yeah, like, it's going to be at the expense of a person, a group of people, the planet, like,
the staff.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And there's always going to be a way for every business to make more money if they take advantage of their factory workers or the environment or whatever. And social entrepreneurship, like, really changes the game in all of that. Are there any brands or companies that, like, you love to purchase from because they're a social enterprise?
A lot of them are small, and a lot of them are very specialized, like, products. Like, you don't really see them commercialized. There's so many in Vancouver. Like, Vancouver in general is way more ahead than we are here. Like, you walk down the street and, like, 50% of the businesses you pass are going to be social enterprises.
Wow. That's cool.
Especially, like, in this one area of Vancouver, but there's one, actually, my laptop cover, I've got it from one of the social enterprises there. It stood for Enterprising Women Making Art, so YUMA,
Okay.
So it was located in the downtown east side of Vancouver, and so women who were marginalized by the system. It's like, everything always comes back to the system, right? Like, people, they are marginalized, or they are living on the margins because of the system. People are experiencing homelessness because of the system. They're not homeless people anyways. So it's an interesting, like, shift, I think.
Yeah, to say the system has homelessness and not, like, there are homeless people.
Yeah. Because they're not homeless because they have chosen to be homeless.
Yeah.
Like, it's
a system failure.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's no other option.
Yeah. Anyways, so this social enterprise, they hired women who were living in the downtown east side to create things. They had this, like, really cool studio where they made, like, a whole bunch of stuff. Anyways, they had really cute things.
That's so cool. Shout out to them.
Yeah.
Check them out.
I mean, it's also hard for a lot of social enterprises to probably, like, ship internationally. Like, they're local businesses. Like, that's part of, a lot of them at least. Yeah. Or a lot of them would be, like, business to business companies too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Even, like, Patagonia or, like, Tentree.
I was going to say,
like, are those?
Well, Patagonia's a B Corp, so they're not a social enterprise, but Patagonia... Yeah, I love Patagonia. They're probably, like, my favorite for-profit brand. And so they're a B Corp, so they have the certification that basically means that, like, they've met this standard, these criteria of how they operate their business. So I love Patagonia, and they're just, like, very genuine and authentic with it. Like, they really don't try and hide anything, which I really like.
Yeah. Tentree that you mentioned, like, isn't a B Corp, isn't a social enterprise. And so 10 Tree like plants 10 trees for every item purchased.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, it's a cheap sustainable brand where like it's
still fast fashion.
Attainable to most people, but it is still fast fashion in my opinion. Like they might have ethical factories, but they still
She's covered the label.
like I still think that this is better than Target.
Oh yeah.
And better than probably 90% of clothing companies.
Yeah.
But I don't think you should like seek out like, oh, it's 10 trees, so like it's fine.
Yeah, they're saving the world by planting trees. Like,
Yeah.
no, they're also killing trees by creating that sweater that I'm wearing.
Well, and one of the things that they do that like is just so they'll have mystery sale where it's like you spend $100 and we send you 3 items and it's a surprise. And like that, as a minimalist, you know this. And also in sustainability, like you only buy things if you absolutely need them, especially when like go to the thrift store and buy whatever you want. Like that's fine. But to be like, oh, I'm going to buy brand new things that were made in a factory that have shipped around the world and like maybe I'll like it. Like that's
and if not, then what?
Yeah.
Like, are you throwing it out? Are you donating it? Are you just keeping it in your closet forever till it rot?
Like those are signs, and I own 10 Tree stuff too. Like that's fine. It's just to say that they're on the same level as like a Patagonia or a social enterprise, like they're not.
Yeah.
And it's just being, curious and extra conscious of, like, take that extra step and figure out where, what you're buying is coming from. Like, it's just not taking everything as face value. Like, I'm going to put Tom's on blast for a second.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's a big one.
They did the, you buy one pair of shoes goes to, like,
a
people in need. I can't remember what country, but and it's like, okay, in theory, great, but what ended up happening was people who actually were living in this country, they made a living by selling shoes. So now these people aren't able to work and make money because these shoes were just coming from across the world. So it's just like little things like that, and that's like essentially the whole purpose of social enterprise. You're not just starting a business to start a business and then do some good. It's like, no, there's a need, and it's not like the savior mentality, like we're not trying to just fix your problem. It's like you have identified this as a problem in your community. You're the ones experiencing it. We want to help you solve this problem, really. Like, we want you to be a part of the solution, and that's...
Yeah, not coming in to just, like, take over and implement, like, Western views. Like, make it work for them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And even within one community, it's like, if a bunch of men decided that they're gonna fix women's issues...
Yeah.
Like, things like that happen every day, all day.
Especially overseas, I think. Because they're like, oh, no, we can fix it. We have all the money, and that's all they need is, like, our money. But no, like, there's reasons and ways that things work over there. We need to just be, like, we're supporting them to make changes in the ways that they need and they know will work. Yeah, and it is the savior complex of, like... And then, there's also, like, McDonald's or Tim Hortons who collect money for charity, XYZ, whatever it is. Yeah. And, like, the customers are giving a toonie every time or whatever. And then Tim Hortons gets to say, we donated $100,000. Like, you didn't donate anything. Yeah. You put out a box. I did.
Yeah, I hate that. And that's, like, an even lower level of, like, greenwashing, but for social issues. Yeah. Yeah.
Gotta love a junior chicken, though.
I have not eaten at McDonald's since those uni evenings.
Yeah, I have.
Me too. It's my treat.
No, I'm actually feeling very inspired now to like start my own social enterprise. Like, what can I do?
Yeah.
What does
like
the world
right
need?
now? So we're gonna end this pod and solve the world problems right now.
A little more brainstorming to be done.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, and inviting us into your beautiful tiny home.
Anytime. Yes. It's so nice to have visitors.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of Say It Sister. We'll talk to you next Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, girl.